Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bon Voyage Besties, your favorite travel and friendship podcast with Rachel and Rosa. We have a super awesome guest with us today, Alex. Alex is the founder of Alex on the Map, which is a website devoted to national parks and enjoying your outdoor adventures. After growing up near Glacier National Park in Montana, Alex now spends summers hitting up the trails with her husband and dog. Sounds like a ton of fun. Her outdoorsy content reaches over 1 million people each month, and she is a true inspiration for anyone looking to ethically enjoy our national parks. I personally love the Grand Canyon, and Alex is a big inspiration to me. I don't get outdoors all that frequently, so I love following her content for ideas. So let's welcome Alex to the show.
Oh,
Welcome.
hi. Thanks so much for having me, Rosa and Rachel. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Absolutely. We're super excited to have you. So, with national parks, we have summer coming up, and there's a lot of talk about ethical tourism surrounding the parks. So, what does that mean for anyone looking to visit the parks this summer and to get outside and enjoy them?
That's a great question. And to be honest, it's a little bit of a loaded question this year. There's a little bit going on right now when it comes to national parks. We had a lot of recent firings of our national park rangers and employees. Recently, they call it the Valentine's Day Massacre. And isn't it sad? It's so sad. And it just is the worst timing ever, right? You're going out to a nice dinner and you get an email that, you're not coming back for the seasons. That happened, and that was really a difficult thing for our national parks because they are already very understaffed and underfunded as it is. That's been a problem for the past few years. Recently in California, a judge stated that these people would be rehired, rangers and employees would be rehired. But because that has to go through the Department of the Interior, it may not happen. So we're not really sure actually the state of where the staffing is going to be in our national parks this summer. And then also we have a bunch of Forest Service employees as well that were fired. So anytime you're going to get outside this year, it's going to be a very different experience than what you've had previous years. So that's a little background about what's going on in our national parks, just so visitors are aware that going into it, it is going to be a bit of a challenge this year, especially when it comes to keeping our places beautiful and pristine and keeping them amazing to visit. So just that's kind of the background there and what we're facing. So
Yeah, it seems like a very difficult situation for sure. I remember going to, like I said, the Grand Canyon, and the park rangers were so super sweet and helpful. And my tour guide was talking about the housing that's provided, and it seemed like a really awesome gig. On a previous show, I said to Rosa, part of me just wanted to like up and leave New Jersey and go and be a park ranger because it sounded lovely. And I can't imagine the parks being short staffed like that. It's really heartbreaking.
it is, yeah. And, park rangers are really, they're incredible people. Most of them do not get paid a high salary, even if they are provided housing and some government funding. They really do it just because they love the outdoors and they love our national parks. So this is a very heartbreaking situation where you do have people who really, truly care and they're not able to do their jobs. They assumed that they would have this job for the rest of their career as well. So it has been a really tough time for the staff. So we'll just kind of see what happens there. Maybe they will be reinstated. We're not 100% sure. But for now, that means it does put a little extra on us as visitors to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So that's why it was so great that you're having me on here to talk about that. I hope I can do a good job sharing exactly what we can do in order to make things okay.
No, we're super excited to have you here. And it's unfortunate everything that's happening. I know I visited the Grand Canyon right before the pandemic and it was so awesome, so nice. We met a park ranger there. It was super informative, giving us so much information and like fun facts. And he was like so caring, talking to myself and my daughter Samantha. So we really do appreciate all the hard work that goes on behind the scenes to maintain these parks that we get to enjoy. I know after the pandemic, I became a little bit more active exploring the outdoors, like nature trails near me. And same thing, all the upkeep and all the hard work that goes on to the conservation is really important work. So we really hope things get better, for the economy. But like you said, for us as the everyday traveler visiting these parks, we have to take matters into our own hands and make sure that we are being ethical, that we are taking the necessary steps, like the No Trace initiative and things like that, that we can personally do to kind of help the environment altogether as well.
Yeah, no trace is really important. At my school, we actually have an environmental club, and we're trying to do something for the school where it is a green school and you can get funding and grants and that sort of thing. So let's talk about Leave No Trace, because I remember that became really talked about after the pandemic and during the pandemic when so many people were getting outdoors. And I feel like this year it's going to be even more important. So for our listeners, can you explain a little bit about what that entails?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you're totally right. Leave No Trace has been around for a number of years now, but it really did kind of start to take off during and after the pandemic when everyone said, I really need to get outside. I want to get outside and I want to do it the right way. So, Leave No Trace is a series of 7 principles that you can do while you are out and about. And they're really simple. They're not difficult. It's not, hey, I need to know how to navigate over this next mountain, or that's part of it, but it's not the whole story. It can be just as simple as making sure you take your trash out with you when you go. If you're camping, make sure it's on a durable surface so you're not harming any wildflowers or any of the ecology while you're there. It's really just about being mindful when you are in the outdoors about your impact. So staying on the trails, not approaching wildlife, being careful with your fires, and also being prepared, I think is really going to be a big one this year because we're not going to have the staff to help us if we're outside and an emergency happens. So making sure you're as prepared as possible.
Yeah, I don't want to go off the trail and get eaten by a grizzly bear.
No.
That does not sound fun. I keep thinking this was years ago, and it was actually in Canada, Banff National Park. It was my first camping trip, and I remember our guide saying, "Make sure to lock your deodorant up in the trunk because the bears will smell it and they will find it." And it just terrified me. And same with like the trail. I made sure it was firmly on the trail because that was the main thing, not getting eaten by a bear. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like in the case of an emergency, if you don't have the staff to help you, if you get lost, that's pretty scary, especially because some of these national parks, the service isn't great. Like I remember going to Mount Rainier, which is not that far from Seattle, and I had no service the whole day. And I was on a guided tour and we were going to the most popular spots.
It is crazy to think that we don't have the infrastructure for that, but it's true. A lot of our national parks kind of are off the grid, which is something I love about it personally. I love being able to kind of shut my phone off and be in nature and really enjoy it. But again, that does make that experience, if you are lost or need help, a little bit more difficult for sure if you can't contact someone.
I know that's always my fear. I'm so clumsy, so I'm always afraid, especially like when I'm by myself, that I'm gonna slip and fall, won't have service, and now here I am stranded on a mountain somewhere. So that's always my biggest fear. But I guess not to jump all over the place, but if someone is hiking or probably staying like overnight or in a camping site, what are some things or some items that you suggest that someone should bring with them?
Absolutely. So we were talking about being in communication. I think now if you haven't invested in a satellite device, it's probably a good idea if you're planning on being out in the outdoors camping away from service. iPhone now, you can send satellite messages for free. So it's not like you need to go out and buy something expensive. Most likely you already have it, but that just makes it a little bit easier. If there is an emergency, you can contact someone. Also, again, knowing your environment. So I camp a lot in bear country, which means I do have to have a bear canister. That is a tool I use that I put my deodorant in, all those things that would attract a bear and keep it away from the camp. So it really comes down to, again, knowing what you're getting into before you get into it and something bad happens. So that's an aspect of Leave No Trace as well, is coming in prepared, knowing what you're doing, or at least to the best of your abilities.
Yeah, 100%. And the wildlife too is beautiful. Like the bears, I did see them from far away on a boat ride when I was, I think in Jasper, I want to say it was, and it was really cool to see them. And these parks are home to a lot of beautiful animals besides bears. So for people who love animals and they're like, oh, I do want to see them, what are some ethical ways to appreciate the wildlife without putting yourself in danger, especially like with the shortage of staff that we're experiencing?
Great question. Absolutely. The best thing you can do with any wildlife encounter is keep your distance and make sure you have plenty and plenty of space between you and whatever animal you're viewing. Of course, that's a huge reason why people come to national parks, right? Is to see the animals, especially I feel like there's always something bad that happens in Yellowstone 5 or 6 times a year because someone said, I'm going to pet the fluffy cow, and it's just bad. Knowing again, like, we don't approach animals, we give them space, they are wild, really giving them that distance. And also another thing you can do is do a little research before you go. So I ran into a bear twice in Glacier before I had to spray it off, but I knew
I just like pretend like I'm dead. I'm like,
it was I wouldn't recommend it, honestly. I both times it was a really harrowing, scary instance, and that sometimes just happens even if you are super prepared, but you need to know how to respond in that as well. So that also requires little research, again, that leave no trace, being prepared before you go into an instance where hopefully you don't have to spray off a bear. That's a very, very rare thing to have to do. So just throwing that out there, you're most likely not going to have to do that, but just in case.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're in their home, you're in their space. So you need to respect them and do your research. It's not like you're camping in your backyard.
Absolutely.
even then, you might see some bears. We had that situation. I'm in New Jersey, and it was so random. We had this one time an alert went out, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there's a bear loose, so just be on the lookout." So every night when I was taking my dog outside, I would like creep out, looking out the window, making sure there was like no bear in my backyard. It was the most
Gosh,
random thing, and I'm like, I'm in the suburbs, but I guess wildlife, they're everywhere.
true. Yeah, I went camping in Jersey, and I did. We saw black bears up there. It was crazy. I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah, it's wild. And I grew up in South Jersey near Philadelphia. And when I moved up here at my school, we actually have lock-in drills where like the exterior doors are locked in case we have a bear outside on campus. And I was like, what? I was like, a bear? Like, what is this? Like, that's like so wild to me. I still haven't seen one by my school, thank goodness. But
Oh,
we do
gosh,
have drills in case a bear is on campus.
It
you
pays to
never
be
know.
prepared.
You never know.
But that must have been pretty scary. So I'm just curious, what have been some of your favorite national parks that you have visited within the U.S.?
It's so hard to choose. I will always throw out Glacier because that's where I grew up. So it is very, very special to me, which is a big reason why I'm very into promoting conservancy, especially because it's my home. So seeing it grow, seeing it change, seeing the environmental impacts of climate change has been a lot. So Glacier, absolutely, it's my number one. But there are other ones I've loved too. I love Yellowstone. I love Teton. I mean, it's really hard to pick, but I love Great Smokies, actually. Great park. Each one offers something a little bit unique and special. So I really think there's kind of a park for everyone, and everyone finds that park that fits who they are. So that's kind of the great part of exploring our national parks, right? Is finding your park, finding what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's one of the best things our country ever did was the National Park Service. I remember this was years ago. It had to be like, gosh, like 2012. I don't remember, but the Natural History Museum in New York had an exhibit all about the national parks, and they had this movie with surround sound that they were playing. And this was really before I started traveling, and it brought me to tears. I was like in complete awe of these parks. It was so easy why they're so beloved. And you're totally right. There's a park for everyone. When you find that special park, it just like means the world. The Grand Canyon brought me to tears too. I just like I couldn't stop crying.
That was a beautiful experience.
Definitely. So, Alex, you talk a lot about doing research, and it's even more important this summer with the staffing shortages and whatnot. So, what should people really, really know when planning their trip? Because you see a lot of information about timed entries to the parks and things like that. So, how should they really dive into that research to be prepared and to organize their own trip when there may not be the help to do so?
Yeah, great question. So, first and foremost, I always think it's important to take a look and see what the entry requirements are. Not every park has timed entry this year, but a lot of them do. Glacier's had it for past, I think, almost 4 years at this point. Rocky Mountain's had it for longer. This is just part of the impact of having so many people come in. So, there have been different ways to manage it, looking to see if you have time entry before you book your flight, before you book your rental car and show up and you can't get in. That's kind of first thing, I think. From there, it's really about seeing, okay, is this certain trail I want to check out closed? They recently closed the Fiery Furnace in Arches National Park because the staffing is just not going to be there this year. So certain things are just probably not going to be open. You're going to have a different experience than you might have had a few years ago when the staff was there. So making sure that the things you want to see are going to be open. Otherwise, again, you're going to arrive disappointed. You're not going to be able to really enjoy the park for what it is. And another thing I would just keep in mind too is that some services in the parks are just not going to be there in the same way. So a lot of parks offer shuttle services that might be a little less available, considering that there are probably going to be fewer drivers, bathrooms, things that require regular maintenance, trails that they might not be up to par. So that might mean you just have to check out some alternatives, take a look at some other activities in the area near the national parks, or just kind of accept, hey, we're going to be doing something a little bit different than maybe we had originally planned.
And it's crazy to think like a lot of people don't realize like everything that goes into preserving and maintaining these national parks. Like even something as simple like you said, like the restroom facilities or like the shuttle. I know when I visited the Grand Canyon, it was a little bit colder than I expected. My daughter and I were a little bit tired. So we maximized that shuttle as much as possible. And it was so great to have when I discovered that this was an option available. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So to think now that that's something that's not going to be readily accessible for a lot of people, it's heartbreaking because these are a lot of great services that are being provided. So because of lack of funding and cutting staff is just very heartbreaking and disappointing to hear.
It is. It's really hard, especially for people who love to travel, people who love to get outside. It is definitely a heartbreaking thing, but I've been feeling super positive by seeing the reaction of the communities that have gotten behind sharing this information about how we can preserve our national parks, protesting, saying this is not okay. So the reaction has been amazing. And I do think they have been listening. Otherwise, they wouldn't have said, we're going to reinstate people. So again, it's not a great thing, but it does bring the community a little bit closer in some ways, which is not bad.
Yeah, 100%, because everybody loves the national parks. I feel like that's the one aspect of our country that everyone seems to agree on is that the national parks are awesome. So it really unifies people. I actually, on the 4th of July, have a national park shirt and it has a bunch of the parks like labeled on the front. I always wear that and rock it out because I love them so much and I want them to be available for generations to come. Like I think about my students who are outdoorsy. I want these parks to be there for them.
Absolutely. Yep. That's the goal. We're working on it. We're working on it. We're doing it.
Positivity.
Yes.
Putting it in the universe.
Exactly. Putting it out there.
One thing that I've actually recently realized, I have a good friend and her husband, they love exploring national parks. So she was talking about the National Park Pass, which I didn't even know was a thing, or the National Park Passport, and how like intense that whole system is. I was like, oh my gosh, it's like a whole another world when it comes to the outdoors and like the park life. I was like, this is pretty intense. I'm a newbie. I'm not much of an outdoors type of person. I try to put myself out there a little bit more. My daughter loves it. So we try whenever we go to a certain destination, if there is like a hiking trail or something that she wants to do outdoors to kind of explore that. So the most we've done when we went to the Grand Canyon, like I said before, was just like right around the shuttle. So I did it like, I guess the lazy way.
Nothing wrong
But
with that.
what I needed to see.
Yeah, no, exactly. You don't have to be a super outdoorsy person in order to enjoy our national parks, which I think is why it appeals to everyone. I have a custom national park itinerary service that I offer, and I plan trips for newlyweds who are looking to get out on the trail and take on a tough hike, older people who are taking their grandkids. And so it's really just runs the gamut of age groups and ability. And that's, I think, as we said, it's America's best idea. That's what it's called. So I really do believe that for sure.
Yeah, that's so cool that you offer that service because I love the national parks and I feel bad because I've always wanted to start the passport but never did. So now I have to revisit all the places I've been, which is fine. Like I could totally do that. But it's always a little overwhelming with planning because like Rosa, I am not a hardcore hiker. I'm not super outdoorsy. So just like out of curiosity, Alex, which parks would you recommend to national park beginners who want to dip their toes in? They want to start exploring our park system. Where do you recommend they start? And I'm going to take notes for myself too.
You mentioned Washington and Mount Rainier, that area. I think it's a great place to start because the great thing about the Washington parks is you can go all out if you want. If you want a tough hike, you really want to get out there and get deep in nature, you absolutely can. But there are a ton of other options if you are not feeling that and you just want to enjoy a 3 mile stretch that is absolutely gorgeous and paved and all ready for you. What I love about Washington in that way is you have these epic, incredible views for not a lot of work, or you have the epic, amazing views if you're going to work really hard for it. So it really just depends what you want out of it. So I always feel like Washington is a great place to start. Olympics, a very family friendly, but also a little bit more rugged too, if you want to get into it. So Olympics a great park for that.
Fantastic. Yeah, with Mount Rainier, I was there in August. I felt like with all of the beautiful flowers that I was in a fairy tale. We were just like in this meadow with flowers and the mountain. It was just so picturesque and beautiful. And it, like you said, wasn't a lot of work. It was a very short, easy walk. And I felt really rewarded, which was super nice.
Yeah, no, I do. I really love how accessible they've made the Washington parks. It's great. And Utah is another one. If you're more into desert environment, Arches is a great place to start. Again, there are so many great options, but those are maybe just a few I'd start out with if you're brand new to national parks and you're just looking to get started.
And that's great that that's a service, like Rachel was saying, that you offer, because I know for myself, just doing the research part, like sometimes I'll look online and necessarily won't have information about if it's an easy hike, a moderate hike, or just like basic details. I'll be like, oh, it's like, 3 miles loop. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But like, what does that mean for me? Am I like hiking? Do I have to go through rocks? Is it a paved trail? So finding the information sometimes it's non-existent. So is there a way or a place where someone can go to research more information about specific trails or parks that's a little bit more detailed?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the go-to always is All Trails. It's not always 100% accurate.
Sometimes that happens to me. This is a moderate hike, and I'm like wheezing and dying, and I'm like, not for my out of shape butt, it isn't.
Exactly.
This is a challenging hike.
Exactly. I'll look at it and I'll say, oh yeah, people finish this hike within 5 hours and it's like 8 hours later.
No.
And I'm like, it lies, total lies. But it does kind of give you a general idea of how long and difficult a hike is going to be. Obviously blogs are a great place to go, specifically, people who spend time in the outdoors as well. Social media is becoming more of that too. You just have to be like a little careful about what you read because again, not always 100% accurate. Those would be the places I would start. And then if you want to get really deep into the weeds, there are more complicated apps that you can plan your route into the backcountry and get an idea of how much that's going to, how much elevation you're going to gain, how much distance and stuff like that. But in the beginning, All Trails, blogs, YouTube, any of that kind of stuff should be a good place to start.
Yeah, that sounds good. I always try to do research and I look. We went to this hiking trail by us in New York and it said just that, like a 3 mile, round loop, easy hike, should take you 2 hours. I was like, okay, great. Yeah, no.
It did not take 2 hours.
I told my daughter, I was like, Sam, she works out, she goes to the gym, she's very active. I was like, Sam, just go ahead. But if it's like an hour and I'm not there, then come back and look for me.
Come find me, please.
Please come find me. And she made it to like she made it to the ledge to see like the view and the fall foliage, which is so pretty. So I got there maybe like 30 or 40 minutes after she had arrived. I'm like sweating. And of course, like, she's young and in shape. And I'm like, what the hell, man?
Come on.
Said easy. That was not easy.
Come on. Oh my gosh. To be fair,
but the
though,
views were worth it.
Those East Coast hikes, man, it's all up.
It was, yes.
Yeah, it's not gradual. You hit it and it's just like, I'm just continually climbing here. Like, when am I going to get to the top? So I have a lot of respect for East Coast hiking because I lived in New York for a long time and we'd go out and hike around there. And I'd be like, growing up in Montana, this is hard. Like, it's a lot of up. This is crazy. So
it's serious business. Like anytime I hear of a hike in like New York State or something that involves scrambling, I'm like, no, I will hit my face. I'll break my manicure in a million pieces. That cost me $50.
I'm out. We're done.
That's so funny. I always tell myself, I was like, the view's going to be worth it. You're doing it for the gram. Push through, Rosa. Push through.
Yeah, it's always worth it in the end. It wasn't in a national park, but it was down in Scottsdale, and it was a desert hike, and it was a sunset hike. And I initially wanted to plan it myself and all, and I was solo traveling. And my mom was like, "You are not going into the desert at night. I will legit murder you before any scorpion does." So I booked a tour, and the elevation, it was a lot harder than I thought, because I'm like, oh, this is like right outside of Scottsdale. It's going to be fine. Well, it was challenging. Like, the views were worth it to see the sunset and all of the sparkling lights, but then coming back down too, because it was dark, you needed a headlamp to be able to see where you were going. So I was glad I went with a group, because my dumb ass would have just went without a headlamp. That would have been really bad. Would have gotten lost.
Oh man.
Part
But
of the
yes,
adventure.
yeah, totally.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of trails, say you're like planning like a couple hikes through the national parks, what would you say would be your top tips for being sustainable while you're actually physically on the trail and exploring?
Yeah, 100%. And again, all this comes back to leave no trace sustainability. So taking a look at those rules is really kind of the first place to start. But the number one thing I always see is people just leaving their trash and leaving it on the trail. Maybe you don't even know, like you have a wrapper or something like that, and it goes off the trail. Accidents happen, that sometimes you may have not even noticed, but if you're a hiker and you've come up and you see other people's trash, also picking that up and saying like, I know I didn't leave it, but at the same time, I'm going to pick it up anyway and take it back with me. Those are just easy little things that you can do that are really going to help out staff, because that's a big part of what they do is clean up after everyone. Another thing, again, is staying on the trail, as we mentioned earlier, not going off and saying, I'm going to do a choose my own adventure thing. That's, they're in certain designated areas in the backcountry. That is okay. That is allowed. But most of the time, you want to stay on the trail, the designated trail. You want to make sure that you are where you're supposed to be. So those are two just really simple things. Last, I would say, is leave things where you found it. So even rocks, even beautiful flowers that you think, oh man, I'd love to take this home, or I'm going to pick this for my significant other, or whatever it might be. Just making sure you leave it, because that really does impact the ecology after a while. If everyone decides, hey, I'm going to pick a flower, or I'm going to take a rock, eventually it does add up when you have millions of visitors every year to the parks.
Yeah, totally. I think it all boils down to don't be selfish, because I think there's this mindset, especially say with the trash example of like, well, I didn't drop this. Why should I have to pick it up? And it's like, at the end of the day, these parks are for all of us and they're for everyone. So just pick it up. I know my school, we're actually going to do a beach sweep at one of the beaches here in New Jersey, and we're going to go through and we're going to like pick up all the trash. Obviously, we didn't trash it, but it's just a nice thing to do to keep the parks clean. So I think being a kind, selfless person is really, all you need to do.
Yeah, yeah. And that is kind of the last leave no trace principle, is being considerate of others as well. So if you see people on the trail, being friendly, try not to be a jerk. You don't need to be best friends, but at the end of the day, making sure you know the rules when it comes to passing and, interacting with others is a huge deal.
Not listening to music without headphones.
Oh no! Oh
Two
no!
speakers on the backpack. I hate that on the beach, so I'd imagine I hate it on the trail too.
It's one of my biggest pet peeves, like leaving the trash, especially like dog poo specifically, because and then they leave it in bags and then just leave it. So it's like you bagged the poop, but you didn't take it with you. So kind of not understanding. But anyway, the Bluetooth speaker thing, that's the other thing that just gets me.
Not here for it. Not here for it. It's like, I don't want to listen to your music. Like, my parents, they're in Florida for half the year. And like when I'm sitting looking at the Gulf of Mexico, it's like, I want to hear the gentle waves. I want to watch the dolphins. I do not want to hear your crappy music that I could pull up on Spotify myself. I hate it. So I could see it being similar on the trails. You're like enjoying these mountain views. And then you hear like, I don't know, whatever playing from someone's Bluetooth.
You're like, okay, 1980s hip hop. Like, I love it. I know, but I don't really want to be listening to it on the trail.
Not here. Not here.
Not here.
That's so funny. But I've encountered so many nice people. Like even you said, as far as like knowing, passing and being courteous. I went hiking one time and there was like a family and they had like smaller kids and I have a bad knee. So I knew it was going to take a long time. And they were trying to be so nice. They're like, oh, you can go ahead. It's a lot of us. I was like, no, trust me. You guys are going to get down there way faster than I am. So please take your time. Go down. Don't feel like you need to rush because I'm standing behind you. So I think just being courteous to people goes a long way as well. Not kind of of like huffing and puffing, because somebody's taking their time or being a little bit slower. If you're more active than they are, like good for you, but like, be a little patient. Like you don't know someone's physical abilities, and we're out there trying to enjoy it and trying to maximize our time as best as possible. Like I don't want to be holding up the line, but I can't go any faster. So just kind of being conscious of that, I think kind of goes a long way as well.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like we said multiple times, these parks are for everyone. It's not your private park in your backyard. Like it's for everybody. So don't get pissed off when there's other people there and they either need to pass or you don't want to pass them. Just be considerate. Just be nice.
Exactly. And it is one of those things. Like my husband and I, we were married in Glacier, which was beautiful.
That's amazing.
Lovely.
That sounds
It was
lovely.
so nice. Yeah. But, we did have some onlookers that weren't invited to our wedding, just checking it out and saying like, wow, there's an event going on, But, and that's the whole idea of these parks as well, is to bring people together. So even if it is at your wedding, I guess, but you know what? Come on in. It's all good.
They're like free food and music.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, someone's wearing white. That's interesting. Exactly. Yep.
And that would be so much fun. So much fun. That's a really beautiful place to get married. I won't lie, I probably would have looked too.
It was funny too. My husband's side, they're all from New York. So they came in and we all got set up. And the first thing they did before the wedding even started is they beelined it to the shores of Lake McDonald and were taking pictures. And not of us, the bride and groom. It was of the surroundings. So yeah, it was like, well, we are definitely not the center of attention here. And that was totally fine. It was great. So.
Yeah. So speaking of people being everywhere, like we said, these parks are popular. Like I think I've been hearing about how beautiful Yellowstone National Park is since I was 5 years old. So overcrowding can be an issue, and it's especially even more important this year with the lack of services that are available. So how can we balance the desire to visit these famous, beautiful national parks, but also like being ethical about the overcrowded hotspots as well? Because overcrowding can be a problem, even though the parks are for everybody.
Mm-hmm. You're completely right on that. And they've been very quiet about it this year, but our national parks last year received record visitation. So they are more popular than they ever have been, which again means a lot of people in nature, a lot of people in places that kind of are meant not to have a ton of people. The easiest thing you can usually do when it comes to planning is maybe to take a look at going when other people are choosing not. Shoulder seasons are always a good idea. It's hard when you have a park like Glacier because the season is so short. But a park like Yellowstone is open all year round, and I think equally magic in the winter as it is in the summer when everyone chooses to visit. So it's a little bit different. Some things are closed, but you're going to see way more wildlife and you're going to see it in a really spectacular time of year. If you're a photographer, winter in Yellowstone is fantastic. So it's really taking a look at those dates that maybe aren't the most popular, seeing if that could work with your schedule. There's also the benefit that it will be cheaper to visit that time of year too, because not as many people are going. For a place like Glacier where your season is limited, it starts beginning of July, really, if you want to drive. Yeah.
I didn't realize it was so late. I would have thought June. Wow.
Yeah.
So that is a short season.
Yeah, you can still go for sure. The park's open 365 days a year, but going to Sun Road, the main attraction there, usually opens that first week of July. It usually closes mid-October when it starts to snow. So that's a really limited window. I typically say visit in September. September is my favorite time to be in Glacier. It's beautiful. Again, you're maybe not going to have quite as many services, but you're not going to have the crowds for sure. It's going to be gorgeous. So that would be my main focus, is to say, hey, you know what? Stick to maybe some times that aren't quite as busy. I know summer vacation and spring break and all that. It's hard. But
what about, like, say someone like me who teaches, or people with kids who can't take advantage of those opportunities? Are there any, like, say, like alternative parks that you would maybe recommend that they check out? Because sometimes the schedule's the schedule and it can be hard.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of exactly what I was going to say, is if you are limited on when you can visit, checking out alternative parks is always a good idea. So I mentioned Yellowstone. In California, there's an amazing geological park called Lassen Volcanic. Has a lot of similar features to it. slightly different types of hiking trails, different kinds of scenery, but you do have some of those same geological features and it's not nearly as crowded. It's not even close. So there's definitely some alternatives that you can take a look at. Teton is always super busy. Great Basin in Nevada is gorgeous. Very similar kind of mountains, great hiking trails, just not as busy as you would see. So alternative parks, always a good idea. I think even on the national park social media, they did like a visit this or that kind of thing one time where it was like,
Love
if you like this park,
that. That's
yeah,
so cute. That's a
it's like,
great idea.
if you like this park, check out this park. So yeah, again, that requires doing a little bit of research too at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love that whole idea of getting off the beaten path and seeing something new. And it makes it like fun for planning in the summer too. Cause like I said, sometimes it can be tough, but knowing that we have so many parks out there, there's a few of them that seem to like be in the limelight all the time, but there are an abundance of parks available.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have 63 national parks. So that's plenty to choose from for sure.
Lots of options. Now, when you do some of the services that you offer, can you explain a little bit more what that entails and consists of?
Yeah, absolutely. So I usually get on a phone call with a potential client to chat about their trip. We go over what they want to see, how much time they have, when they're flying in and out, or if they're driving. I put together road trips as well. But we just chat really about the experience that they want to have when they're in the park, who they're traveling with. If they're a family, it's going to be a different kind of trip than say a couple, than say older generation as well. So we talk about that. We talk about the main things that they want to see. We talk about any tours or activities they would also like. And then I put together a custom package for them based off the feedback that they given me. We go over it, make sure that it all aligns with what they'd like. It also includes recommendations for hikes, hotels, any additional activities they might have, things like that to help them really have their best national park trip of a lifetime. Help with reservations. That's a big one as well, making sure that they can get into the park the days that they need to get into the park.
That's important. But that's pretty cool that you offer that service because I know for me doing research, sometimes it could become a little bit overwhelming and you're not necessarily finding the information. So I know if I'm going to a destination and that's going to kind of be like my main attraction going to a park, I want to make sure, like you said, that we get reservations, that we're booking any activities that we need to book ahead of time. So it's pretty cool, to be able to have that service just readily available for you and you don't really have to do any research. So
That's
I
the
would sign up
idea.
for that. I would sign up for that in a
Sign
heartbeat.
up for that in a second. Because, like I said, I always get overwhelmed too. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have Alex plan all my summer trips and I'll see all these beautiful, lesser known parks and it'll be incredible.
My gosh, anytime, anytime. I'd be happy to do it. I'd love to.
Yeah, that would be amazing. So we talked a lot about the park service itself, and we've also discussed the community a little bit and how there's been such an outcry with everything that's going on with regards to reducing the amount of park rangers and whatnot. So what can people do in this moment? They feel very passionately about the national parks and they may be feeling a bit helpless. What actions can we take right now?
This is a great question. I really love this question. The best thing you can actually do right now is purchase a parks pass. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. And if you can, purchase a parks pass at an actual park because that money goes directly back into that specific park. So if you can buy them online, whoever's selling it online is going to get some of a kickback. Where if you do purchase it right at the gate, you're actually donating that money to that national park, which is great. It's also a super benefit. If you visit 3 national parks within a year, it more than covers it. So if you are passionate about that, you're going to visit more than 3 parks, you definitely should go ahead and make the purchase. On top of that, being active on social media, it is exhausting. And I know we're all exhausted right now.
Gosh, I've just been watching HBO nonstop because I'm so exhausted. I've been living in such a bubble.
Oh, man, I don't blame you. I seriously, it's tough and it's tough to constantly monitor what's going on and how that affects you. But at the same time, being vocal, saying these are our parks, we love them, we care about them, sharing that. You don't have to have a huge following at all, but just to let people know that this is how you're feeling is one way you can do it. There are also protests going on throughout the country. We have some in DC, almost every national park location. There's been a protest every few weeks. So usually online, they give a schedule out of when this is happening. So if you live near a national park heading out on a Saturday, making your voice heard, that's a big part of it as well. Finally, I would say writing to government. Even though I know it's insane right now, but writing to your representative, a local representative, your state, national, federal level as well. I'm really just making sure that you are putting the word out there that you care about the parks and you care about their well-being. That's going to make a huge difference. Again, if one person does it, it may not be heard, but the more people do it, the more people are going to recognize, okay, this is an important issue that we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, there's definitely power in numbers. Now, are there any resources where listeners can go if they want to help on a financial basis, aside from buying the national park passes?
Yes, yeah, the National Park Foundation is a great option. Also, if you have a specific park in mind, there's usually conservancy related to it as well. So Grand Canyon Conservancy donates money and does a lot to supporting the Grand Canyon specifically. So if you have a favorite park, Glacier National Park Conservancy is my favorite. That's usually who I donate to, but National Park Foundation is great on that. There's also the National Park Conservation Association. They also do some good work for the national parks too. And they also have a lot of really good information about what's going on right now on our public lands, not just our national parks.
Yeah, those are all wonderful things you can do. I'm just thinking in my head, I'm going to see my family in Florida next week, and they're not too far from Everglades National Park. And I'm ready to be like, can you drive me to Everglades National Park so I can buy a park pass?
Oh my gosh, that's so
love
cute.
it.
I love it. Yeah, no, and Everglades is amazing. You'll love it.
Love the
It's
Everglades.
so
I
good.
love the Everglades. I remember I first went, I don't actually remember because I was like 2 years old, but my dad always likes to tell me the story. He was like, yeah, like you were 2 and you were so enthralled by the alligators.
They're so cool though. I don't know. Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah, it's really an amazing park. I absolutely love it. And also, like you said, writing to representatives is something so easy that you can do. Like, I know me, even though I teach and I'm in front of like kids all day, I still get really scared actually calling my representatives. So, but they make it so easy to email them. I must bother them once a month about different issues. And it's really super easy. And I know too, there are different like templates that you can use for your letters if you're not really certain about your writing skills. It's super easy to come up with a template real quick. And I think I did find one on social media about the national parks in particular.
Awesome. And I know Outdoor Alliance also has a template as well. So I think it's outdooralliance.org. They'll have that. They have a template ready. And then they also have petitions going out. So if you see a petition that you agree with, then go ahead and sign it and they'll send it to legislature for you.
Yeah, sign it. It takes 5 seconds.
Exactly. And I know during the pandemic, everyone, like you said before, everyone went out there, enjoying the outdoors, enjoying nature. So I feel like now is our time also to stick together and advocate on the behalf of the parks, because if we don't do it, then who's going to do it, right? And we want to make sure that we preserve it, like we said at the beginning of the episode, for generations to come. So now is the time for us to really unite and make our voices be heard, because it's a very important topic. And without nature, the wildlife, all of those things, it's important to preserve them.
Yeah, 1,000%. So looking ahead, Alex, what do you hope for the future of national park visitation? What would you like to see it look like in terms of sustainability and ethics?
As difficult as this time is, and as much as my heart breaks for the people who have been fired, hopefully they'll be reinstated. I do hope in a way this is a learning opportunity for everyone to say, maybe we do take a little bit more responsibility when we go out there. Maybe we aren't 100% reliant on other people to clean up our mess and make sure we don't get lost, and all these things that we have relied on our government and the park system to do. So absolutely, I want park rangers to have their jobs back, and they absolutely should. But maybe we can be a little bit more considerate for them and also our beautiful parks when we get out there. So in a way, I do kind of hope this is a learning opportunity for all of us to get out there and say, hey, maybe I could be a little bit more mindful here. Maybe I could give back a little bit in this way. That I think would go a long way toward helping our national parks, especially if they're going to continue to be understaffed and underfunded.
Yeah, definitely. Because the world needs a little more kindness, especially now. Just like, don't be self-absorbed. Like we said earlier, if you see a piece of trash, pick it up.
So many amazing tips. Thank you, Alex. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you on social media?
Sure, absolutely. You can find me anywhere pretty much at Alex on the Map, alexonthemap.com, Instagram, TikTok, all the places.
Yeah, definitely follow her. She's awesome. And if you're planning a trip to national parks, reach out to Alex. I know I certainly will because, like we said, it can be overwhelming and she's an amazing resource. I would absolutely trust her 1,000% to plan a trip of mine to the parks. So,
Thank you. That's very
of
sweet.
course.
Agreed.
Well, thank you so much, Alex. And to all of those
Yeah.
of you who are listening, we really hope that you found this helpful. And definitely, do what you can to support our national parks. Like we said, writing to representatives, signing a petition, it doesn't cost any money and it doesn't take up too much of your time. So I highly suggest you do that.
And if you can financially, make donations, do your research and make sure that you are also donating to a reputable agency and not just to any kind of random GoFundMe that you find online. Because I see some random things sometimes where people are like, hey, donate to this. And when you click on the link and you start reading, you're like, are you really supporting the national parks? I don't know. So
Maybe
make sure
not.
it's a reputable organization before you donate your funds.
Yeah, donate to me and I'll go visit the national parks for you. Actually, don't do that. Don't do that. I'm just kidding. I'm not a scammer.
Love it. I love it. Fully funded trip right here.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much, Alex. We really appreciate you being on
you.
the show, and we'd love to have you back on again sometime soon. So thank you. And to all of those of you listening, we love you guys, and we hope to see you get out in nature this summer. And take care, be safe, and respect the environment.